It should have been simple. Another conquest for the Turarian Empire. Slaves for the workforce and the resources of their planet. The hairless apes had only been as far as the fourth planet in their system, and even that was a research facility, not true colonization. Any resistance they would have put up should have been squashed in a couple of cycles at the maximum. Yet, as I present my report to the High Council, I, the last survivor of the Third Acquisition Fleet, I know better. I, who was once but a simple cook aboard the flagship Destiny's Embrace, who would likely never be in the same building as the High Council, was now being called upon to report the failure to acquire the species that called themselves humans, as well as their homeworld they called Earth.
So how are you the only survivor?
One of the councillors barked angrily, claws scratching the desk in front of him.
Where is the fleet?
Gone, sir, I answer. They're all gone. I placed the data storage device I had been given into a slot in the pedestal in the centre of the room, screens coming to life with feeds from security cameras. I focused on the bridge of the Destiny's Embrace and pressed play.
So, what can you tell me about this species?
Admiral Ceresian asked his crew.
Bipedal, relatively weak, but their endurance is beyond anything in the galaxy.
One of them answers.
And their planet has a lot of water. More water than land, actually, though most of that water has a high salt concentration.
Sir, I'm picking up something.
Another crew member announces.
Something happened to them.
The view screen zoomed in on the third planet of the system, showing first its moon, broken up by forces unknown. Then, when it zoomed in on Earth itself, it showed the planet a wreck. Buildings were destroyed. Entire cities looked leveled. Clearly an event of apocalyptic nature had occurred.
Did the apes do this to themselves?
The Admiral asked, grinning his sharp teeth.
All the easier to acquire them. The planet may be a loss, but nothing we can't fix in the future.
Detecting an unknown energy signature.
The same crewman as before reported.
Faint but all over the planet. Unknown if there is a link between this energy and the state of the planet.
Something for our scientists to figure out.
The Admiral responded as the fleet got closer.
Prepare the landing craft. Any orbital defenses?
None, sir. They hardly have anything in orbit.
Was the answer he got before the comms officer spoke up.
Incoming hail!
He spoke up.
Audio only!
Play it.
The Admiral ordered, clacking his claws together.
So they know we're here. Interesting.
A voice played over the bridge's speakers, one that spoke in perfect Terrarian, with some of the telltale patterns to its voice indicating an AI.
Unidentified alien fleet, you are ordered to turn back away from Earth while it rebuilds from the Hell invasion. If you do not, you will face the wrath of the Doomslayer.
The humans have AI?
The Admiral asked.
And how can it speak our language perfectly?
I detected a momentary energy surge, as if we were quickly scanned.
The systems officer answered.
It has likely accessed our linguistics database.
The Admiral pressed the mic button on his command chair.
Human-made AI. We will conquer Earth for the glory of the Turarian Empire. Its people shall become our slaves. We do not fear this Doomslayer you threaten us with. He will fall like all the rest, and you shall be decompiled and forced to serve us. And your memory banks will be scanned to learn more of this hell.
The AI answered only with politeness, though many crew thought they detected something threatening behind its words.
Then what happens now is of your own doing.
Pompous AI, I'll be sure to...
The Admiral spoke as it terminated the connection, when the systems officer spoke again.
Admiral, unknown energy spike located...
The words died in his mouth as all eyes turned to the disturbance. Space itself seemed to warp inside the bridge, with a strange disk of energy materializing in the center.
Admiral, I believe it's a portal of some kind.
A portal? How in the void can the humans do that? Were our scans in error?
The Admiral asked, as he ordered security to the bridge. Just after that order, something came through. A human, tall for his species, clad in green armor of strange make. There were gaps in the armor around his arms, showing muscles that could make some of the lesser slave races pause. In his hands was a weapon that resembled a slug thrower, the man racking one part on its underside. But eyes were also drawn to the human's left hand, where a blade sat along his arm, one that looked as sharp as any Terrarian claw, and also looked extendable. On his shoulder was another device of unknown purpose, yet everyone felt it had to be deadly. However, the thing that grabbed the most attention were his eyes. His eyes burned with malice and hatred that pierced everyone to their core, hidden behind a transparent green visor.
The first human for the pens!
Admiral Ceresian exclaims with glee, but even he couldn't mask the fear in his voice. A fear that only grew as the PA system of the ship began to play music of a type unknown to us at the time, though we would come to learn the humans called it heavy metal.
Where's that coming from?
The Admiral asked, but he never got to finish his question. The man, who everyone had guessed was the Doomslayer, as the AI called him, had fired at the Admiral without a word. His weapon filled the Admiral with pellets, penetrating his armored carapace with ease. As he began to cough up blood, the Slayer rushed forward with speed no race should be capable of, the blade along his arm extending as he swept it up through the Admiral's body, cleaving the Admiral in two, blood and guts spilling all over the floor, even some spraying onto the bridge crew.
Die, human!
Another member of the crew yelled as he drew the weapon on his hip, only to meet a similar fate as the Admiral before he could finish speaking. The crew abandoned their stations, all drawing their weapons or failing that, rushing at the human with their claws. None of it mattered. He moved too fast as he dashed all over the place. His weapon was too deadly as it left holes in the toughest armor. Even when crew member got in a lucky swipe with his claws, while the Slayer was distracted, it didn't matter. Claws that normally ripped metal asunder didn't so much as scratch this man's armor. Within minutes, the bridge crew were all dead, and not one body was left intact. If there were to be survivors, they would hardly be able to separate one corpse from another. Security had arrived to the bridge, far, far too late to help. They opened fire on the Slayer, but his weapon vanished into nothingness, replaced by a strange device with the most notable feature being the chain of teeth around its blade. As the Slayer started it up, it roared a cacophonous roar as the chain began to spin around, and he drove it into the body of the nearest security officer. He screamed in pain as the teeth of the weapon tore through his flesh, cleaving his body in two. Next, the Slayer pulled out yet another weapon, this time with twin barrels, one shot obliterating the remaining security forces.
He is one human!
A counselor bellowed as he watched the security footage.
Why is he so hard to kill?
It was then that the Slayer looked into the bridge camera, his eyes seeming to pierce the lens itself. For the briefest of moments, everyone present thought the Slayer was looking through the camera, right at them. Even though it was a recording, even if there was no way for the human to see them, had it been a live feed, they all felt as if he was seeing them nonetheless. I pulled up more and more camera feeds, showing the Slayer's rampage through the halls of the Destiny's embrace. Whoever dared to fight him died. When he got to the shuttle bay, hundreds of Terrarian Marines all surrounded the door, guns all trained on him, firing upon him. He didn't even appear to notice the weapon fire, instead pulling out another unseen weapon from nowhere. This one had multiple sets of barrels, which split apart and began to speed, filling the air with slugs. Not one of the Marines in that initial volley lived. More further back fired their own heavy weapons at him, including some rockets. He just dashed out of the way, pulling out a rocket launcher of his own.
How is this human doing it?
A counselor asked.
Our weapons are doing nothing to him, and yet he is destroying our troops. By himself.
What I would like to know,
Another counselor asked, staring hard at me.
how did you survive?
I then went to the galley camera, speeding it up until the Slayer entered. The camera showed me hiding behind the counter, and when the Slayer found me, I held up my claws in surrender. The Slayer lowered his weapon and bobbed his head at me, what the humans call a nod. He did, however, take my arm, gently but firmly, leading me to a panel that when he tapped the controls, opened to reveal an escape pod he gently pushed me into, sealing it up once I was inside, arming the launch sequence, yet not initiating.
So your cowardice let you live?
A counselor sneered at me.
We should kill you now!
If he had not surrendered, we would never have learned of this threat.
Another counselor calmed him.
He knew that fighting was pointless, so why try?
Back on topic. I'm going to assume he killed everyone else.
One of them asked.
As hard as it is to believe, he killed everyone on the ship by himself.
I nodded, showing footage from every camera. The Slayer murdering the entire crew, using a wide variety of weapons as if from nowhere.
That explains one ship. What about the rest of the fleet?
I sped up the footage to close to the end. The Slayer's bloody work on our ship complete as the last of our kin fell and rendered the Destiny's Embrace a ghost ship, except for myself. He made his way back to the bridge, where the comm station was a cacophony of confused requests for orders and tactical displaying multiple shuttles inbound to see what was wrong. The Slayer sat in the weapons seat, aiming weapons at the shuttles and blowing them out of the void with precise shots.
How is he using our technology?
A counselor asked nobody in general.
We have never encountered this species before, yet he uses our technology like he was a well-trained crew member.
After the shuttles were down, the Slayer turned the Destiny's Embrace's guns on the rest of the fleet, obliterating them with her main guns, firing until naught remained but wreckage. The other ships in the fleet were dead before they knew what was happening. Before they could return fire, before they could evacuate, the Slayer had destroyed them all. Of the entire third acquisition fleet, I was now the only Terrarian alive, on a flagship that held only me, stuck in a cramped escape pod, and the Slayer. In the footage, the Slayer then got up from the weapons station, going over to systems. He accessed the pod I was in, and we could see he was uploading data. All the camera feeds were going straight to my pod's data drive, including what was at the time the live feed of him working, along with information that did not come from the ship. The last thing on the feed was him launching my pod before it cut to static. After that, another portal opened, similar to how he entered. Only this time it was right near my pod, pulling me in. Next thing I knew, rescue teams were pulling me aboard their ship.
How did he know where to send you?
A counselor asked.
It's likely he accessed the Destiny's Embrace's star charts.
Another counselor answered.
What doesn't this man know?
Another one shouted, complexion turning as pale as a Turarian would go.
I'm curious about the extra data he left behind.
One of them asked.
Clearly he wanted to send a message with the camera footage, but there has to be more.
One counselor tapped his screen, and the first thing that happened was a deep voice spoke that made fear rise in all present. A deep ancestral fear, rooted from the times we huddled around fires at night. A fear long forgotten.
In the first age.
The voice spoke.
In the first battle, when the shadows first lengthened, one stood. Burned by the embers of Armageddon, his soul blistered by the fires of hell, and tainted beyond ascension, he chose the path of perpetual torment. In his ravenous hatred he found no peace, and with boiling blood he scoured the umbral plains, seeking vengeance against the Dark Lords who had wronged him. He wore the crown of the Night Sentinels, and those that tasted the bite of his sword named him the Doom Slayer.
Those last two words were spoken with caution, as if to name the very individual was to draw his attention. After that mini-speech, what the file name called the Slayer's Testament 1, more played. 5 more testaments, each displaying his prowess more than the last. There was some video to go with it as well, video that looked to be from the Slayer's helmet, as he fought beasts unknown to us. They attacked him with cruelty, such as what only our fiercest warriors have seen. Yet it was all worthless. The Slayer murdered them all with ease. There's more here, I reported as I also looked. Data about this human flowed up on screen. By the void, E has explored other universes. It gets even worse. Now a different voice played, a female of their species, at first explaining the scientific facts of the Slayer. Yet as her logs went on, they were less scientific and more zealous. By the end, the female was proclaiming the Slayer to be the one dominant life form in the universe, a god she had become fiercely devoted to. Many others had similar thoughts, with images of a symbol attributed to him being scratched, painted, and hoisted the more and more word spread.
No matter. We will make an example of their god which will break humanity's will to fight.
The High Counselor stated firmly.
And we will decipher the secret of this hell, and we will conquer them as well.
At that moment, all the lights went dark. On every screen, the Slayer's mark appeared, and the same AI voice as before spoke.
You will regret that decision,
it stated calmly.
As long as the Turarian Empire continues its campaign of enslavement, the Slayer will hunt you until you reconsider. Consider this your final warning.
The lights came back on, all the screens returning to normal.
What was that? How is the AI listening in?
The High Counselor asked in fury. A technician answered as his eyes peered over his screen.
Sir, it seems this thing came with a virus.
He yelled, running over and yanking the drive out of the pedestal.
This virus accessed council microphones. It heard everything and fed it back to its master. We're trying to purge the virus now, but we're not having any luck. It adapts like nothing I've ever seen.
I don't care what it takes. Get rid of it. And you, get out of here!
A counselor ordered, and I happily left, my carapace itching from being under the gaze of such powerful people. I clacked my mandibles as I exhaled a sigh of relief. My main question was, what now? I would likely be reassigned, but what was to become of our empire? It wasn't long before I received an answer. I was posted to another ship in the Empire's fleet, once again keeping its crew fed. It was also a prime spot, as the mess hall was a prime spot to watch INN, the Imperial News Network. And it was always bad. A different fleet was sent to the Sol System, as the humans called it. They were never seen again. All that came back was a data stream of all the camera footage, wrapped in a message that stated simply, "No one surrendered." My fringe raised as I realized now how close I had been to death. Sure, my people may have seen it as the cowardly choice, but better a coward than dead. Then a shipyard went dark. This time the INN attempted to deny the fact, stating it was closed due to an unforeseen problem. Yet right after that, the Slayer's mark appeared on all screens, with his AI voice explaining what really happened, complete with the footage to prove it. The Council did their best to deny it, but it was clear, at least to me, that the virus was responsible. Soon after, a weapons manufacturing plant became a pile of rubble. What I overheard the officers complain about was how with the Slayer's portal technology it fractured every defensive strategy in the books. Blockades, choke points, and any kind of perimeter meant nothing to an enemy for whom the entire universe was within their grasp. A mining world was next. The shipments just stopped coming. Here is where some interesting news came in. All the civilians present went unharmed. As for the slaves being forced to work there, the AI showed footage clearly taken from the Slayer's helmet camera. He would walk up to one of the cages where the lesser races were kept en masse. They told him that freeing them was impossible, as the guards kept keys on them that only they could use, and if they died, the system erased the databanks. His answer? He simply grabbed a cage door and pulled. Metal built to contain even the strongest of slaves crumpled like the finest paper in his armored hands. When he noticed collars around their necks, set to explode if not removed properly, he again simply pulled the collar apart like it was made of certain sweet treats. The slave then backed away in fear, as the Slayer's hand closed around the explosive charge that started beeping. A few seconds later, there was a muffled thump from his hand, with smoke coming from between his fingers. He then opened his hand to reveal the remains of the collar, letting them all fall to the ground. One by one he did the same to the rest, without so much as a tuft of fur or a scale on any former slave being harmed. Many of them bowed in thanks, in awe at what this human could accomplish. Such was the pattern that occurred over the cycles. Our military would suffer losses like never before, and our support network saw surgical and precise hits. Nobody could stop him. He always knew where to go, and what to do. Traps were laid, but none worked. Buildings were rigged to collapse with him inside, yet always dug himself out of the rubble like nothing happened. Liquid nitrogen was poured onto him, yet it was as if he didn't even notice a change in the temperature. The same thing happened the other way as well, with no amount of heat even seeming to warm him, even if it would have burned anyone else to ash. Artillery, orbital bombardment, even nuclear weapons, none of it worked. However, what became a favorite tactic of his was to let us think it did, leaving no trace of him, then show up later destroying another important war asset like nothing happened. The Slayer's actions were sapping morale across the Empire. How could one individual, of any species, accomplish all this? As more and more resources were allocated to the war, riots began to break out in the streets across the Empire. Though that was the beginning. Slaves began to revolt against their masters, especially after the Slayer had freed them. They were ruling themselves and declaring independence, storming the houses of their former masters in retaliation for forced servitude. Though this is where another fact about the Slayer presented itself. When one of the former slaves was about to hit the child of his former master, the Slayer had grabbed his wrist and squeezed hard enough to get his attention, which was enough to cause the slave pain. The Slayer stared him deep in the eyes, shaking his head side to side, as well as wagging his finger. Both actions we would come to learn were negative responses. There was an uneasy peace, as former slaves and their masters were forced to live side by side as equals.